It is the end of the year, and it's been a great year for the sport of boxing. A lot of super fights were made this year. A lot of great events for this beautiful sport have been made. And what better way to top it off than with my top 5 pound-for-pound fighters of 2023. Now, this is obviously all based on my opinion. Wasn't a easy um, list to be made, not especially the last two spots, which I assume most of you guys have an idea of what those two fighters are. But let's go ahead and get right into the top 5 pound-for-pound fighters for me, of 2023. At number 5, I have Devin Haney. Now, I know for some of you that are saying that the Lomachenko fight went the wrong way, I sort of agree with that. I mentioned this in my Regis Prograis and Devin Haney prediction video that if I was one of the judges, I'll probably give the edge to Lomachenko. However, I'm not going to yell robbery on that fight. I think that Devin Haney boxed a great fight, especially at a weight class that now that we saw in the Regis Prograis fight, 135 wasn't really Devin's best weight class to fight in, right? He was a little too drained for my liking and his liking, obviously. And once he fought Regis Prograis later this year, he absolutely dominated and looked absolutely incredible. He even managed to drop Regis Prograis and shut him completely out. And that's not easy to do, especially with a tricky fighter like Regis. Many people discredit him after the fight. However, I gave more credit to Devin Haney on his performance rather than Regis' bad performance. But he had a great year. He made big, good fights happen. A lot of rumors are going around on whether he should fight Tank. But most recently, looks like he's negotiating a fight with Ryan Garcia. I would love to see that fight, especially at 140 with Tank. If he does end up fighting Tank, I want him to fight at 140 for sure. But with that being said, I have Devin Haney at my number 5 spot, just based on all the fights he was be able to make. And what really sealed the deal for me was his performance at 140 against Regis Prograis, without a doubt. Now at number 4, I have none other than Saul Canelo Alvarez. He did drop a little bit, at least from compared to last year's. I didn't have a video. I didn't have a channel at the time, but I usually like making lists every year for myself. But I have him at number 4 this year. The main reason was of his performance against Jermell Charlo. Now, of course, Jermell Charlo did come from 154 all the way to 168 to fight Canelo. But either way, Canelo looked absolutely great in that fight. Looked like a more healthier Canelo compared to how he looked against Ryder earlier this year, which even myself have had my questions on whether he can be a top super middleweight like a David Benavidez, right? Now, I still want to see the fight with Benavidez for obvious reasons. I think that's one of the biggest fights to be made in 2024. But with that being said, I think that Canelo that we saw against Jermell Charlo is one of the most dangerous Canelos that you can possibly face, especially if you're a guy like Benavidez. So it gets me excited without question on Canelo's future and what he can do in 2024 and try to regain that top spot in the pound-for-pound rankings. I will still favor Canelo over pretty much every super middleweight. I think the best fight, of course, the best fighter that can challenge that number 1 spot at super middleweight would be David Benavidez. But as of right now, I still have Canelo as the king of that division and number 4 in my pound-for-pound list. Now, at number 3, I have Alexander Usyk. Now, in his most recent fight against Daniel Dubois, it's a very controversial fight, at least for a split second, where Dubois allegedly landed a low blow, right? But Usyk has been absolutely dominant the past couple of years. As soon as he jumped to heavyweight, beating Anthony Joshua twice, and then defending against Daniel Dubois, which he managed to stop. And Daniel Dubois isn't no joke. He recently had a great fight in the Day of Reckoning card. But I think Usyk, the way he looked this year, I think he has a really, really good shot at being Tyson Fury. Now, the Tyson Fury fight, going back to that big fight that's going to be taking place in February, I rather I choose Usyk over Tyson Fury in that fight as of right now, based on their performances. Now, they were scheduled to fight pretty much a couple days ago. However, that got pushed back due to the damage, I assume, that Tyson Fury took in that Francis Ngannou fight, in which left many questions to the boxing community as whether if he can even beat a guy like Usyk based on how he looked against Ngannou, who of course is an MMA fighter and not a boxer. But at their best, I think Usyk is the more skilled fighter. The only way I would give an edge to Fury would be if he is just takes advantage of his size and length like he did with Wilder. But Usyk, I still believe in him. I still believe he's the top 3 in this case of the pound for pound fighters in today's game. And I'm excited to see what the 2024 has in store for him. Now, the most difficult part of the top 5 pound for pound list, pretty much in recent memory, it's been very, very hard. And I wouldn't blame any of you guys if you guys switch these two fighters around. But at number 2, I have Naoya Inoue. Now, Naoya Inoue is an absolute monster, as his nickname suggests. He's had a great year being Fulton, being Tapalis. Listen, the eye test never fails with him. The way he punches, the way his power moves, the way his speed, his IQ, everything that he does just looks absolutely beautiful, especially for the folks that study the sweet science and more detail rather than just casual punching. The reason I have him at number 2 is only because the number 1 spot is just greater in my opinion at this point. But now, in a way, like I said, you could easily have him at number 1, and I can't really fight you on that decision. I think his accomplishments being undisputed in 2 weight classes this year speaks for itself, speaks volumes, and I believe that he's going to have an even better year in the 2024 campaign. But that's not to say that he had a better year than number 1 spot, which of course I'm talking about Terrence Bud Crawford. Now, for 5 years now, there's been one big fight to make. One fight between the top 5, unarguably pound for pound fighters in the world, and the top 2 fighters in the welterweight division. And those 2 fighters were Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. For years, it's been a 50-50 fight, split down the middle, pick'em fight, whatever you want to call it. The odds makers, Vegas, couldn't really decide on who was going to win. And when this fight took place on July 29th, Crawford made a statement. And he had unarguably the performance of the year and one of the best performances in recent memory. Crawford dismantled, outclassed, outpowered, outmaneuvered, outsmarted Errol Spence in dominating fashion. And I myself, I was pulling for Errol Spence. In fact, you can make a big case that I'm an Errol Spence fanboy. I even had the Smoking on Bud shirt that night because I was Team Spence all the way. But after what I saw that night, I was in shock. And many people had this fight, at least coming into it, whoever wins this fight is going to be number 1 in the pound for pound rankings. So if Errol Spence were to win this fight, I would have had him number 1. But that wasn't the case. And it was Bud Crawford who absolutely dominated. And I mean dominated. And made it one of the best welterweights we've had in recent memory. A unified champion. A guy that was breaking faces with Ugas and was dropping guys like Sean Porter and just outclassing every single one of his opponents, just running through them like a freight train. When he fought Terrence Crawford pieced him up and took him to school. Now, a lot of people may discredit this fight, saying that Errol Spence was a little dehydrated, maybe a little weaker. Some people even saying that he was high. I don't think so, by the way. But if Errol Spence is not going to make any excuses, neither will I, and neither should we. because Bud Crawford deserves all the credit in the world for his performance against Errol Spence, and that's why he deserves to be at my number one spot. Like I said, if you want to switch him back and forth with Naoya Inoue, I cannot blame you whatsoever, because these are two great fighters that we should appreciate the fact that they're active in today's game and that they're fighting and giving us performances like such they gave us this year. But it's been a great year for boxing, with that being said, and I can't wait to see the Errol Spence rematch. Hopefully it's at 154, and Naoya Inoue maybe climbing up another weight class, just get a lot more recognizable names for the USA audience. I want to see Canelo versus Benavidez, Usyk versus Tyson Fury. That's going to happen. Can't wait to see that. And Devin Haney versus possibly Tank. Right now, it looks like the Ryan Garcia will be next for Devin Haney. But we'll see what the future holds in that regard. But let me know what you guys think about my top 5 pound-for-pound rankings for 2023. Do you agree with my list? Do you not? And so give me your top 5 pound-for-pound fighters of 2023.